Did you hear about Hitman and the Wall of Death?
I did. It's such a classic video game like QA story.
I love that we can still have some fun and we can still lean into it. So in World of Assassination, they had
AKA the Hitman trilogy compilation game.
they released a big update where they addressed a bunch of issues, and one of the ones was apparently there was a wall that as soon as NPCs approached it, they just dropped dead instantly, and no one could understand what or why, but you could just lead anyone to a specific wall in North Atlantic Castle, and
It would just die.
And it was specifically a wall inside of the morgue, in particular.
Which is perfect, really.
Yeah. So they were like, well, that's weird. Let's try to fix it. And so they put extra collision around the wall to keep NPCs from hitting it.
No.
That didn't stop the wall because
Not good enough.
it kept claiming souls. It kept claiming lives.
Not good enough.
So they then went to the lengths of surrounding it with a bunch of boxes and stuff, and that should keep the NPCs away because apparently they can't fix it. They can only seal it in.
I'm so in love with like weird game problems that like no matter what they do, they can't figure out what the root cause is.
Yep.
So let's just paint over it. Just paint over it.
All I can think of is Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, and the wall that must be kept wet. It must be kept fresh with blood. Amazing.
So what it makes me think of, somebody in the chat actually just mentioned it. In classic World of Warcraft, there's a rock, like just a rock asset in the middle of one of the zones that Blizzard was like, we don't really like the location of this. We want to move it and reorient, some of the landmarks here. And every time they would attempt to move the rock and upload that version of the zone, the server would crash, like with 100% certainty.
Huh.
And they were never able to figure it out, and so they just left it there until WoW Classic was no more.
Wow.
It's like you can't move it, don't move it.
And we
something
can't,
about
yeah.
Something about it is keeping some other system up.
Like there's like, so what you all like, whatever is public facing internally, there's a bug with like a fucking 100-long comment chain with people going, but what? Okay, hold on. What's happening in the code that's caused? And like there's something here that yes is like there's an anchor point of some kind. There's something that like, if you fuck with this, you're causing other problems, and they've tried to, and implementing the fix led to a million other things. So no, break it again, and just cover it up, bandage it, let it stay in place. Hitman in particular, there was one of the not Blood Money, it was Absolution. I want to say there was a level where we were testing it, and there were a number of collision points where when you'd snap into cover at the corner of a wall, you just fall right out of world. And
Nice.
And then they'd fix it and like try to beef up that spot, but then another place somewhere in the level you'd fall out of world, and then it's like, oh, this is a consistent problem with the way the mesh is made on the ground, and like just corners in particular would lead to like just random death if you hit it the wrong way. So I think eventually a solution, and this has become not become, but other people have done this for a while, is you take the collision of the ground, duplicate it, drag it further down and a little bit off, and the holes that exist will still exist, but you'll now fall into another ground collision layer, and you'll be standing on that, and then you can just move out. So therefore, all the holes are patched, right? Instead of fixing the hole in the boat, we copied the boat's collision and dragged it a little bit to the left and off. And now the water cannot make it in.
Somebody in the chat points out Diablo 4 has really small stash space. And when people were like, why can't you increase the stash space? The devs were like, well, every single time a player runs by you, we load their entire stash into your memory. So the stash space has to be kept small. And the response is, what? Fucking, what? Why? Why?
Yeah.
But my favorite ever
Designed
is
poorly
very
from the jump.
similar to what you're describing. And it's Red Dead Redemption. The original Red Dead Redemption had a very, very minor physics bug that would often become explosive. And it was the loading bug in which entities would load in 1 inch lower than they should. So the feet of horses would load in an inch below the floor's collision.
Oh no.
But the physics engine would cause the horse's like body to push on the floor collision. And so you would start to see the wagon going up and down and up and down, and the horses would start to vibrate.
God,
and eventually the rebounding force would become so strong that the fucking horse and its wagon would just launch off into space like a rocket. So you would just be riding your horse in Red Dead Redemption going, oh yeah, I'm an old man cowboy. And then you would see a fucking horse carriage look like it was fired out of a catapult just fly at 200 mph past your face. It was awesome.
I'm kind of reminded of the fact that we're not seeing I have not seen a bunch of Twitter threads of what I should expect to see, which is a million Baldur's Gate bugs happening.
They're very minor. Right now, the worst bugs that exist in the game are in the third act, and it's like scripting. It's scripting errors where a companion is trying to load an event that no longer exists.
Okay.
And so it kind of breaks a quest line. But yeah, no, Baldur's Gate 3 has some like, oh, this bonus is not applying correctly, or there was a really fun bug where you would pose through a whole cutscene and it looked hilarious. But all in all, it's pretty solid.
And Cyberpunk was another example of tabletop converted into gameplay and trying to do a whole lot. And obviously, the initial release of that, didn't quite fucking figure it out.
No. So, like, Cyberpunk's a really good example, and I feel like we're not going to see a massively super expensive game release in that kind of state for a while. I think the game that we would be likely to see have that happen is a Bethesda game like Starfield, but like Microsoft QA has been working on that game for like a year and a half, and I have a feeling it's going to release clean, and like early leaked impressions seem to imply that the game is actually going to release clean. But yeah, I don't think super high-end games are going to be releasing like fucking Cyberpunk for a while.
Well, I mean, relating to that is I guess the word on the street that like Starfield appears to be pretty clean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, this we have to wait until next week until people actually show it. But my sneaking suspicion has been that it will actually release somewhat clean.
But how can you be Skyrim in space? How can you be Skyrim in space if you can't launch? Well, instead of launching things into space, I guess launching them down to Earth, doesn't happen. Yeah, interesting.
I don't know what it would be like to play a Bethesda game clean. Like, I don't know what that's like. Like, what like their bugs have been like a feature for content creation purposes for so long that I don't even know how you would. I don't like. Like drinking a non-alcoholic beer. Thanks, whitest face Trudeau.
A Heineken Zero. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see.